Hey, this is Past Force Not Quite Live, Unhinged, Unprofessional, and I have been having a lot of problems with this live stream thing. So, hey, it is Saturday, the 18th of February, 2023, and this is the point where I was going to apologize for what usually happens on these, shall we say, live events. But since technology isn't my best friend today, I don't need to. I was going to begin with Aries talking about why he's potentially gay, but instead I want to concentrate on literature and editing literature after the fact, after an author has been dead for 30 years. This morning, all the newspapers are reporting on. Let me get this up. Oh, it's typical, isn't it? You try and get something up and you've closed the tab down. This morning, all the newspapers, The Guardian, The Telegraph, of course, the Daily Mail, are reporting on the works of Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl, very dated these days. He was enormously anti-Semitic. His works these days, they're, shall we say, not aligned with modern values. And the latest thing is that they have been rewritten to remove language which has been deemed offensive by the publisher Puffin. They've hired what is called sensitivity readers to rewrite parts of the books to make sure they can be continued to be enjoyed by all today. Now, there's not a problem with that, I don't think, especially if racist language is in there, language which could be really offensive to someone, language which is against modern values. But when you look at some of these changes that have been made in this instance, they do seem a bit like overkill. There is one, for instance, one change in the witches, which has changed what is maybe a sort of funny little bit about like witches wearing wigs and the child wanting to basically find the witches by testing to see if women have wigs by trying to pull their hair off. And they've changed that in a really weird way to say that no, no, you shouldn't go around pulling women's hair. Just try it, see what happens. It's not good. They've changed that to there are plenty of other reasons why women might wear wigs, and there is certainly nothing wrong with that. Which, in the context of the book, is it seems out of place to me. It seems ham-fisted, a bit moral, a bit preachy. And that's not the only one either. There's a removal in Matilda of mention of Joseph Conrad, and they've replaced him with Jane Austen. Joseph Conrad, again, maybe a little bit controversial today. There are arguments to suggest that Heart of Darkness is potentially a bit racist, and it's very controversial. It's worth some time talking about those arguments, but they've replaced Joseph Conrad with Jane Austen, which seems a bit strange considering that would a child, an 8-year-old, know who Joseph Conrad is? Would they see that in Matilda and go, oh, who's this Joseph Conrad guy? I'm going to go and read him. Are they going to go and do that? Hmm, seems a bit odd to me. And it seems like now I'm not one of these people on Twitter. I'm not complaining that all this is super woke. Changing racist and offensive language is fine in the right circumstances. But this does seem like complete overkill, and a lot of the changes seem like it's worth reading up on this yourself because a lot of the changes seem a bit silly. It seems like they're going a bit too, oh, this tiny thing might be offensive, this tiny thing might make someone upset, let's change it. It seems like overkill and it seems like change for the sake of change. And I think if Roald Dahl's works were that offensive, and yet we should definitely be talking about whether they're still appropriate for children. We should be talking about whether we should still be publishing new editions. But I think to just keep changing them like this when they're 60-year-old books, when they're products of another age, like, do we need to? Shouldn't we just say, okay, let's leave these in the past now? I don't know. I honestly do not know. Here's the thing, we can't live in the past. Works like the works of Roald Dahl, they belong to another age. We shouldn't really be encouraging children to read those books. We should be encouraging them to read modern books, to read modern works of fiction. And then maybe when they're a little older, they can maybe go back to the works of Roald Dahl, view them in their original context, and maybe understand them a little better. I don't think there's any need for some of these changes. Aries, was he gay? I say yes, some people say no. I was asked the other day where I found this myth of Electron, and I think I first read it in a book about Greek mythology by a lady called Helena Gerber, who was German. She also wrote a fantastic book on Viking mythology, think the Greek mythology book is well worth reading. I no longer have a copy of it actually, but my copy was it was a super nice copy. It had gold sprayed edges, and it was beautiful. And I think I first read about it in there, but I rediscovered this myth when I was doing a little bit of research for a book series I'm working on, Homer's Legacy, which goes back to this whole idea of this complete BS idea of the British being descended from the Trojans, and it's all about like heritage and culture wars, and there's a lot of stuff about um, there's a lot of connections with mythology in there. It's the main character, Marco, is well, he's actually bisexual, but at this point in the story, he's sort of with another guy. And I started wondering, okay, he seems to think that, well, he has this idea that as a child, he came up with this story that he was the son of Mars. So I started thinking, okay, let's look at connections between Mars and homosexuality. And this story of Electron and the one from Lucian of Samosata came up. And I thought it was a really interesting story because it's kind of the only instance in mythology of Mars being gay. Other Greek gods, few more instances. Zeus had his attendant Ganymede, who the moon of Jupiter is named after, and Apollo had Hyacinth as well. Hyacinth actually it's love triangle, a homosexual love triangle, and that's um, another really really interesting story. Trying to think if Hephaestus had any male lovers. I honestly don't know. Uh, I'll just check that. Would be interesting if he did, I think. Okay, here we go. A list of LGBT themes in classical mythology. Achilles and Patroclus, as detailed in Madeline Miller, Song of Achilles. Recommend that book highly. Achilles and Troilus as well, apparently. Apollo and Admetus, Apollo and Adonis, Apollo and Branchus, Apollo and Carnus, Apollo and Helenus, Apollo and Hyacinth, Ares and Electron, of course. Uh, Athena and Myrmex. One for Athena there. Dionysus, Prisiminus. Ah, yeah. Hephaestus and Peleus, actually, who I think was the father of Achilles, which that's really interesting, that one. Back to the story of Ares and Electron, though, what I didn't detail um, in that episode was what happens next. They get caught by Apollo or Helios, and Apollo goes off to tell Hephaestus. So Hephaestus he traps Ares and Aphrodite in a big net, and invites the other gods and goddesses to come and point and laugh at them. And it's really, really humiliating for Ares. Cupid as well, Eros, is supposed to have um, originated, been born out of this affair. But the main point of the story is the transformation of Electron into a rooster. And it's a transformation myth. It's one of these myths that explains why the rooster crows at dawn. According to this myth, the rooster crows at dawn, warning of the approach of the sun. It's a continual reminder that Helios, that Apollo is coming because Electron failed to warn Ares and Aphrodite. I really love these sort of transformation myths, these myths that explain how things came about, these myths that explain how the world works because they reflect they reflect a kind of innocence about the world, a kind of childlike innocence and a sort of curiosity that existed before scientific understanding. And I think in a way that's kind of sweet. It shows human this aspect of human nature, this aspect of curiosity, this desire to know how the world works, this desire to know, well, okay, where did this mountain come from? Why does this river exist? Why does the rooster crow at dawn? And they're really sweet when you think of them like that. They show that human nature, curiosity, doesn't change. And as I said, there is a really lovely, really sweet, childlike innocence about them. It's an innocence that's it's an innocence that's lost when Christianity comes along, when the Judaic Abrahamic religions come along, because they don't really have the same sort of curious innocence about how the world came about. When you think about it, Christianity, one explanation for everything. Oh, God made it. Yeah, where's that mountain come from? Oh, God made that mountain. Why does the rooster crow at dawn? Oh, God made it so the rooster crows at dawn. Okay, why? Christianity doesn't offer a why. Oh, it does in some cases, like I think Adam's rib, for instance. Why is it men that have one less rib? Because God took a rib out of Adam to make Eve. I think there's some of that curiosity there, but not as much. And I think Christianity is much later than Greco-Roman mythology, of course. Christianity, much more recent. And I think that reflects a shift in Western society, in human evolution. that reflects more shift away from that childlike innocence and more towards maybe more towards a growing up as a species, more towards an advancement, more towards a better understanding of the world. I could be wrong. I could be wrong here. I could be completely waffling, but I think whatever, if I'm wrong, if I'm not, by the time you get to sort of 400 AD, that sort of curiosity about the world, that sort of curiosity about where things come from, about why things happen, why things exist, I think that's kind of gone from humanity in general. Then it comes back, of course. You get to what, 1700, 1800, the Enlightenment. People start asking questions again about, okay, why does this exist? Why is this happening? And you get the rise of science, of rational thought, of scientific experiments, which takes it a step further and speeds up human evolution, human society, until you get to the point where you have idiots like me rambling on the internet about Aries and Electron possibly or possibly not being gay. There's another change in society actually when Christianity comes along. This homosexuality, it's being gay, it's sexuality in general. Christianity, no, 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 no. Don't sleep with another man, you'll be put to death. It's illegal. No, it's immoral. Greek gods, go for it, mate. Christianity, not allowed. It's like a shift away from that. It's like a reaction against that. And I'm not sure why that reaction happens. Why suddenly there's that shift in society from general acceptance of homosexual love affairs to this, no, it's disgusting, it's immoral. I'm not sure why that happens. It's intriguing though, because again, we're now starting to go back the other way. We're now starting to go back to more acceptance of this, more tolerance. Not completely, of course, there's still that, unfortunately, there's still that intolerance, there's still that bigotry, there's still that homophobia, especially around transgender issues. There's a lot of intolerance around that, unfortunately. But we're starting to go back the other way. And it's really interesting how this has gone in a bit of a cycle, I think. Although this is really, really funny when you think about it. Because think about the second most famous ancient monument in the UK. Use a second to think about what it is. The first is your mum. I'm joking, I'm joking. It's Stonehenge, of course, it's Stonehenge. The second, Hadrian's Wall. not built by Hadrian personally, named after him, but Hadrian, gay, had a lifelong love affair with a guy called Antinous. I think Hadrian's palace outside Rome has, I think it has like a big memorial to Antinous. I think even Hadrian might have actually had it built for Antinous. But, but Hadrian's Wall, Hadrian, gay, second most famous monument in the UK, second most famous ancient monument in the UK, named after a gay man. That's kind of brilliant. And I think that should be celebrated a lot more. I think that should be championed. That should be something we should promote a lot more. Here you go. Here's a famous ancient monument named for a gay man. Beautiful. Absolutely, 100%, utterly beautiful. Shall we leave it there? Yeah, that's good enough, I think. Well, thank you for joining me on this little half an hour ramble, and I will see you around. See you next time. Hopefully, next time we will actually get to do this live. I'll get the live streaming software actually working. But in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.